Hey everyone, and welcome back to Brian's Horror Movies for Life YouTube channel. And welcome to this 1982 horror movie review as part of my overall ongoing 1980s horror movie series. So in this video, we're going to take a look at, again, a 1982 horror movie that I don't have the physical media for. It's a movie that I streamed on YouTube. First time watch, of course, but that movie is Jaws of Satan. Also called King Cobra. That was its working title. But Jaws of Satan is a 1982 American horror film directed by Bob Claver and starring Fritz Weaver, Gretchen Corbett, John Corkus, and Christina Applegate in her feature film debut. Its plot follows a preacher from a cursed family who is forced to battle Satan, who has taken the form of a huge king cobra and is also influencing other regular snakes in the area. So yeah, that's a very interesting premise. So basically it opens with a large king cobra escaping during a transport and killing two railroad workers before reaching a small town in Alabama. That night, Father Tom Farrow, the town's Catholic priest, is warned by librarian Evelyn Downs that an ancient enemy has come to claim his soul. The next day, two tree loggers are attacked by a rattlesnake, prompting Dr. Maggie Sheridan to call in herpetologist Dr. Paul Hendricks after discovering a body with unusual puncture wounds. Observed by the cobra, Maggie encounters a rattlesnake in her home, which Paul kills, and he stays overnight to comfort her. Following Evelyn's death, Farrow learns from his uncle, the Monsignor, that the family has cursed bloodlines linked to violent deaths and strange occurrences every third generation. The Monsignor warns Farrow that if Satan has arrived in the form of a snake, unnatural events will follow. So yeah, that's to set up the premise, the beginning of Jaws of Satan. As far as the cast goes, Fritz Weaver as Father Tom Farrow, Gretchen Corbett as Dr. Maggie Sheridan, John Corkus as Dr. Paul Hendricks, Norman Lloyd as the Monsignor, Diane Douglas as Evelyn Downs, Bob Hanna as Matt Perry, Nancy Pretty as Elizabeth Perry, and Christina Applegate as Kim Perry. So yeah, that's to set up the premise and the cast for Jaws of Satan, a 1982 American horror film, working title of King Cobra. I wasn't overly blown away by this movie. It kind of felt like a PG-rated killer snake movie, if you will. That being said, there are certainly good things about it that I appreciate, but I don't necessarily know that I'm going to add this one to my collection anytime soon, unless I get it for a real bargain. But it's not the worst thing I've ever seen. So let's just go ahead and get into it, starting with the things that I like about Jaws of Satan. And you got to start with Fritz Weaver. I've always been a big fan of his ever since he was in a couple of Twilight Zone episodes back in the early 60s, which, of course, if you know me and my channel, you know that that's my favorite TV show of all time, the original Twilight Zone from 1959 to 1964. And I think Fritz Weaver was in at least two episodes, maybe more, 2 to 3 possibly. But I also like him in Creepshow. I like him in, he's in an episode of Tales from the Dark Side. Pretty much everything I've seen him in, and he's really good in this movie as Father Tom Farrow. He really puts his all into this movie and this character, despite the fact that the movie doesn't, like, the execution and quality of the movie doesn't really live up to the performance that he gives, but that just speaks volumes about his professionalism, his ability as an actor. But he really does put it all in here and definitely adds some gravitas to the overall movie. He's the character that kept me the most engaged in this movie, when there are a lot of other things going on where I would have been checking my phone more often. But Fritz Weaver's performance as Dr. Tom Farrow was, he was sort of the engagement rod, if you will, for me anyway. I also think the other performances in this movie across the board were good. Fritz Weaver, I mentioned. I think Gretchen Corbett is really good in this movie, because she has to really be the one to convince us that these snakes are really a threat. And I think her and Fritz Weaver both do a good job of it. So really the good performances across the board here. The movie has a very unique and interesting idea here, combining religious horror themes with dangerous, threatening nature. Or animals within nature, in this case a snake, a cobra, as well as other snakes that it influences. That's just really interesting and different. I mean, I'm not gonna say they do it to the utmost, but just basically having Satan um, use this cobra as like a costume to wear, if you will. Having Satan possess this snake, this cobra, through the physical means in the metaphysical world, I thought was very interesting and or not metaphysical, the physical world on Earth. Um, I don't know. I just thought that was very interesting. So I give him credit for that. Like I said, not necessarily executed to the utmost, but Satan becoming this cobra and then influencing other snakes in the area, like rattlesnakes, gardeners, all the rest. If you have a fear of snakes, this movie's gonna is definitely gonna have more weight, carry more weight for you. I'm not necessarily afraid of snakes, though. That being said, I don't necessarily need to come across them, and I certainly don't need to be confronted by a cobra. I realize they are a danger in a lot of ways, other than like, I mean, gardener snakes and things like that I've encountered, of course, especially in my younger days and even now. But I wouldn't say that I'm afraid of snakes overall, but I definitely wouldn't go out of my way to keep them as pets or become what was the guy, a herpetologist, which basically is like the study of reptiles and certain animals in nature. But yeah, if you are somebody that has an absolute fear of snakes, the way that Indiana Jones does, for example, then this movie's probably going to be more effective for you. We get a very young Christina Applegate's cameo, or first movie here. I say cameo because she's not really in the movie that much. She has a scene early on, and then she has a more important scene, I would say, towards the end, where she's actually confronted by a snake. I don't know if it's the cobra or if it's just another snake. But she gets bit by it, and it slows her pulse and her heart rate and things like that. And being like 8, 9 years old, 10 years old, whatever she was in this movie, I thought she did fine for the few little scenes that she had here. But it's just very interesting that this was her first feature film debut. Christina Applegate, Kelly Bundy. So yeah, that's something to take note of that I thought was really cool about this movie that I'll remember. There are a good number of kills and victims as a result throughout the movie, with some pretty good makeup effects after the fact, when they're looking at cadavers and they're looking at people that have been like bitten by this cobra, and they've got like this big spider web kind of bite on their cheek or on their face. I thought those effects were pretty good and pretty effective. As far as after the fact attacks go. And then my final pros, I think this is a well shot movie with, the director and the cinematographer. They use different camera angles to try to make the snakes, especially the cobra, appear more threatening, more visceral, by what they do with the camera. Really focusing close up on the snakes and on the cobra. Which is kind of what they had to do, because they really didn't have the budget for like overall great effects as far as like the kills go, or just the overall presentation of this cobra. But I thought they did a good job with the camera work and the filmmaking aspect to at least make it look like a threatening creature and a threatening entity here. So yeah, those are my pros for Jaws of Satan. As far as cons go, it's not a particularly well-paced movie, and it spends a lot of time setting up characters and side plots that don't really go anywhere. Like there's a dog race that's all about this whole town, and especially the mayor is all about this dog race, and probably to bring in money to the town or whatever. And then that just quietly gets canceled after his daughter is, who's played by Christina Applegate, gets attacked by the snake towards the end. Yeah, I don't know. It's just there's just a lot of non-connecting tissue throughout this movie here that kind of makes you scratch your head afterwards, like, well, why was that there? Why did this character exist? Things like that. Some of the effects aren't all that great and don't hold up that well regarding the actual snake attacks and the kills. Some of the actors actually had to try to sell it more, and some of them do a better job than others. Like Christina Applegate, I thought did a good job, as I mentioned earlier. But like there's one of the guys on a train at the beginning where the snake he basically has to go back like that, and we're meant to believe that the snake bit him or something, and then he forces himself off the train, or I don't know if it's the snake doing it or what, but it's just those kind of things that kind of leave you like, 1981, I guess, when this movie was made. But yeah, I don't know. Some of the effects in that regard don't really hold up, and there's not really a lot of blood or gore as far as the snakes actually attacking. There's a little bit of blood in the movie, but that's not really, they didn't really have the budget for that. So yeah, I didn't think the effects were great. There is one character that is quickly introduced and then taken out of the movie, who's basically just there to be our exposition character, and that's Monsignor, this higher up priest that talks to Father Tom Farrell for the most part in a couple of different scenes. I just think that's kind of lazy when you just bring in a character to be an exposition dump, basically. Overall, the movie is just kind of boring. With the exception of there's one scene that I liked having to do with Gretchen Corbett's character of Dr. Maggie Sheridan in her house where she goes to take a shower and there's a snake that's slithering in her tub, and then she goes in the shower and starts to back up, and they do a really good job with building tension in that scene, and then ultimately the snake ends up in her bed. And then Dr. Paul Hendricks has to come over and take care of the snake and comfort her. And then they end up forming a bit of a romantic relationship, but they don't, which I actually appreciate the fact that it's not like an overly dramatic romantic relationship. It's just kind of there, but you can tell they're sort of into each other. But that scene I really liked. That was probably my favorite scene of the movie. But other than that, the movie just doesn't really have much of an edge to it. It's just a lot of scenes happening without any sort of real horror happening or any real scares. So I was kind of bored by it at times, to be honest with you. And then my final con is it clearly tries to take a lot from both The Exorcist, but especially Jaws, which a lot of movies did for about 6 or 7 years after Jaws came out in 1975. This movie has it all from a mayor who's all about money over people, trying to make money, and the beaches will stay open, this dog show will stay open, or this dog race. They have a town meeting. I mean, it borrows so much from Jaws, as well as The Exorcist with the priest and the Satan kind of things that are going on. And that just does it all poorly compared to those two movies, of course. So that wasn't lost on me. But overall, guys, you could do worse than this movie, but you could do better. And that's why I'm going to give Jaws of Satan a 5.5 out of 10. So 5.5 out of 10 for Jaws of Satan from 1982. Go ahead and comment down below if you guys have seen this movie, your thoughts on it. Put it in the comments down below. Please like this video, hit the little notification bell, and subscribe to my channel. If you haven't already, it would really help me out for the future content in my channel going forward. 3 more reviews for 1982, 3 more movies to take a look at throughout the last 10 days or so of the month. And then also, of course, my top 20 horror movies from 1982 that you're not going to want to miss at the very end of the month and the end of the year, as it turns out. So with all that being said, thank you for watching. I hope you're enjoying this 1982 part of the review series. And as always, stay scared. Bye.